Okay, so check in. I'm going to do a little bit of refocusing here on what I'm doing and what I'm talking about and why I'm reading this material. And I'm going to continue to unpack it. But let's start with the emotional guidance scale. So, the emotional guidance scale is essentially a list of moods that relate to the vibrational or emotional output that we have that attracts things in our life. So that would be based on the law of attraction, which is like the law of gravity. What I put out vibrationally, I get. Neville Goddard called it the law of assumption. So what you assume is going to happen will happen, but that's because you're holding, he didn't know the whole vibrational game, but that's because you're holding a certain vibration that's in accordance with knowing it's going to happen. And in the work I'm in, I believe our thoughts create reality. Our thoughts generate our emotions. And with all the religious and spiritual studying I did for a long time, no one ever told me that, or mentioned, or I didn't get it, or whatever it is, that my emotions were part of my spirituality, or that my thoughts were part of my spirituality, that my mental health is my spiritual health. We kind of separate it as mind, body, spirit. And I didn't know that it's my mood or my vibrational setting here that generates my thoughts, which generates my emotions, and those things together become a vibrational asking or energetic space that attracts things to me. And so that's spirituality. If I want to really connect with God or my inner being or soul or whatever you want to call it and create awesome things in my life, I get to be up here. That's where the vibing of amazing is. And that's really what this journey is about for me. It's not just about like being flippantly happy. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that isn't sustained. We all know that. We're all, I think, really confused about what happiness is and really confused about why it's important to do it. It's actually the most important thing because you will attract amazing things in your life, things that you want. And it's not just for us alone. It's for everyone that's in contact with us, everyone that sees us, everyone that meets us, and everyone who's connected. Whether, I have no doubt by connecting on YouTube, we're connected. So if I'm on the journey to happiness and I'm getting farther, you're going to come with me and I'm going to come with you. And by happiness, what do I mean? I mean, that's enlightenment, really. That's a big word, and I'm not saying I'm going to become enlightened through this process, but living joyously and impassioned, feeling knowledge, empowerment, and freedom, and constant appreciation for life, that's enough for me. And there are tools and the different things that I'm studying that are getting at how you get there and what you can access when you get there. This is actually from Abraham Hicks. If you don't know about Esther Hicks and sort of the source energy that speaks through her, for lack of a better phrasing, called Abraham, I love it. I'm very much a root cause person. I like to get to the source of things. Hilarious that source is another word for soul or God or, you know, God force or whatever you want to call it. That's the word that Abraham actually uses, is source. But even in my work, I've always been a person working in supply chain. It has nothing to do with this, but getting down to root cause analysis is actually, if you're auditing a factory, for example, where marginalized people are making cheap, crappy products, and I'm sent to audit and protect them. If there's an issue there, we find it, we put it on what's called a corrective action plan, and we do what's called root cause analysis. We get to the base issue. You try to get as close to the base issue of what's causing the problem so that you can actually address it rather than addressing a symptom. And I've had this sense that that's what's going on in our lives, where we're addressing all these symptoms. Sickness is a symptom of something else. Depression is a symptom of something else. And I've walked through all that. I've been depressed. I've dealt with addiction. I've dealt with loneliness, grief. I mean, you name it, loss of pretty much everything at one point or another. And realizing at some level that these were symptoms of things. And I always called myself an empath. I always felt like I could sort of read people's thoughts. Not thoughts, it's really their energy. And I didn't know how that was happening. And now I realize it's just the vibrational language. We're all speaking to each other. It's not that woo-woo or wild. We even know with physics that everything is a wave, or, right, there's light waves here, there's sound waves happening. Like, this is an empty space. There's stuff in here, stuff. And so we're also vibrating and putting things out. We're not solid. We know that now. We can't even really tell what we're made of. It's a bit strange, all of it. But as far as you see, I'm a body sitting here. And I love Alan Watts' take on all this because I feel like he really combines a lot of this. But you see me as a body, and I am vibrating. We've established that scientifically, and so we can pick up on that around each other. And that's also what makes it contagious, because we're all kind of swimming in a soup. And I think it's even more powerful than we realize. And our thoughts have power, and our feelings have power. Some people call them prayers, but I don't think you need to be focused and specifically sending it to God for it to have an asking power. And that's where Abraham's work gets to. It says anything you're thinking really or feeling is an ask. And when it's asked, it is given. But in order to receive it, you get to be up here in the higher vibrational levels. And if you've noticed, our culture is really living down here. So depression, rather than something that needs to be medicated, not that I'm telling anyone to get off of medication, this is my journey, but really you're at the lower vibrational scale. And I felt that when I was here, that I lived so much of my life in fear and unworthiness and guilt and insecurity. And I can still drop back there, but I do not live there anymore. And realizing that it's actually a mood game is giving me so much more clarity and power. So I started this journey to say, I want to get happy, but it's become a lot more complex than that. And even spiritual material that I've read before, I'm realizing now it talks about happiness, but I didn't even hear that it was talking about happiness before. And I didn't realize how important happiness was. At the beginning of this journey, it felt really frivolous. Why would I focus on just having a good time and getting happy? That feels really frivolous. Like I need to work hard and get things done and achieve. That's how I've always thought. And again, Abraham will talk about that, that's an unworthiness game, that we're taught that we need to struggle in order to receive. That is simply saying that thought process is you vibe at a good level, good things are going to happen, period. Only good people can come into your space because we have a certain gravitational pull. I can't have people that are really far away from my vibrational state of being coming into contact with me. People are only going to come to work with me or watch with me or work out with me or bump into me on the road or whatever it is that are similar to my vibrational state. And this makes so much sense to me when I was in transformation, I was in training, I've been a life coach, all these different things. I saw that there was something like this. A life coach in training, the number one phrase they use is, my clients are just like me. That's like the number one thing they say. And in transformation, they would say, you can only be in relationship with yourself, which really worried me because at the time I discovered I was in a relationship with a sociopathic narcissist, kind of a downer. And I wasn't a sociopathic narcissist, but we had connection. There was an energetic connection because I was living a fake life. I had a job that paid well and looked awesome on Facebook. I was traveling all the time. It looked very successful in the eyes of the world. I had all the things that looked so great on paper, but I felt like crap because I'm not someone who can do the fake life thing. It just doesn't work for me. Maybe it is okay for some people, but I don't think anyone's really thriving in that space. So most people won't do what I did, which is just sort of knock the whole house of cards down and scratch it all and start over. And I sort of went through this really difficult grief process in losing all of that. It was not easy to sort of knock that house of cards down and step away, but I did. And then I sort of crashed and burned and went through this sort of what I'd almost relate to a death rebirth process and began something much simpler in a different way. And I've already started to get results of things that really make me happy, like my amazing husband now, or my amazing home, or things that I've gotten into gardening and animals and nature, which is awesome because a huge part of actually the Alan Watts work that I've been pulled to recently and entails so much Taoism, which again is pulling you towards nature. I read the introduction on this and I'm considering, even though it's long, reading the whole thing on here because for me at least it's mind-blowing in the way he relates our lack of a relationship to nature to a huge part of our separation from ourselves and each other. And I find it so fascinating that when I went through this sort of death rebirth process, asking for, show me what's real. Show me, I want to be truly thriving. What is life all about? Because this whole disconnected, having stuff, planes and trains and apartments, and it just didn't jive with me, that I was pulled back to nature. And I spent several years at my parents' ranch out of nowhere. We didn't even have a great relationship, so I wasn't expecting that, but we healed all of that through this. And they had chickens and geese. They had randomly gotten this ranch in Colorado. And I started filming the animals. I used to always make videos of myself, and I just stopped for several years and started filming the animals because there was something they were telling me or something that I could see that was so much more impactful than the blabber that I had been sort of spouting out, like 3 tips for, meeting your ultimate man, or 5 tips for the ultimate body, or whatever you want to kick out. That's probably a bigger market at this time, but I think a lot of us are calling for something deeper. And there's so many people on the internet that are continuing to talk with nothing to say, and that's great, they should be, but that's not where I want to be. I want to not only speak about what I'm learning, I want to also be it. So when you watch it, you can feel that this is really who I am and what I'm up to. And it's not pretty all the time. It's a bit messy and silly, but I'm really about getting up here on the vibrational scale. So how do you do it? Before I started this, I made a video, I'll probably post it, about how happy people are the most powerful people in the world. That there's nothing more important than being happy, because you don't need anything from anyone, and you can just genuinely just give joy everywhere you go. And now, the more I've been digging into the spiritual material the last few years, it's been very intense. I'm beginning to get that it's so much even bigger than what I was talking about. There's something huge here for shifting how we're doing life that I think is a deep calling for so many of us, of wanting more. We're in an age supposedly of pleasure and leisure, and we have a privilege in the West going beyond what most societies have had. We have so much opportunity, and yet we are so depressed and medicated and miserable. We want to sit at home. I mean, nobody even wants to leave their house at this point, and there's a beautiful world. There's so much. So what is going on? And I think we want more. I want to feel the age of pleasure and leisure and opportunity and live a life like that. I personally believe we live many lives, and I probably lived many lives without these opportunities and these resources and a hot shower every day, or the incredible opportunity I have as a woman now in the Western world. I've been to China quite a bit. They don't even have those opportunities like we do here, still in this age. I want to use it, and I want to reach a different level of being. And I have to believe that if you're here and have watched this video to this point, you feel the same way. And the best thing I can do is bring this journey to you and these tools. So just to reground myself and to communicate, that's what I'm up to. I'm up to using a lot of spiritual giants and spiritual material from Taoism, Buddhism, Christianity, Course in Miracles. I don't get too into the organized religion when it comes to Jesus. I really believe he was a master metaphysicist. I really believe what Neville is, and he was new. He came to me in this process. I've never studied Neville Goddard. Now I'm reading his material, but he views the Bible as really a metaphysical journey, a mental journey, that the Trinity is your Father, is your mind, your creative imagination, and the Son is the body, and the Spirit is like your non-physical portion that can see everything but still a part of you, and is able to help you create with your mind, which really goes into pretty much the same thing Abraham says. And I always feel when you can find something in multiple sources, that you have sort of a non-physical part of you that sees everything. You have a physical part of you that's doing the journey, that doesn't see everything going on, but is doing all the asking through living contrast. And then you have this incredible mind that is obviously asking and receiving. So even though Abraham doesn't really say it, it is saying that there's a creative element to it. And if you take that view and you look at what Jesus is saying through that lens, it makes a lot more sense, especially since he said, all these things I can do, you can do, and more. His apostles started healing. One of them fell off a cliff and didn't die. I mean, they were starting to embody what he was doing, which is healing others, overcoming death. Didn't quite get there, but there has to be a way to access more of what he was talking about. It's been 2,000 years. No one else has really accessed what he was able to do. And so I think we are looking at his teachings through a lens that isn't as powerful. And that's not to dog Christians at all. I was raised in it, many friends and people that I love in it. But I do think by making him an idol rather than an ideal, we have limited our ability to really garnish what's possible from his teachings. So when it comes to spiritual study, I like getting it from a lot of different sources to try to stay out of anything that gets too dogmatic and stick with a broader view. And I think that's why I feel so attached to Alan Watts in a lot of ways, because he obviously was a bit of a universalist. He's studying all this material, and he's even bringing psychology, metaphysics, languaging in ways that I have never really thought about. But each one that I am reading and I'm reading here bring a different piece, a beautiful, different piece that I think can help us unlock this journey in a different way. Not just the importance of happiness, but what it really is and how we really get there. And actually, there was something great in here that he was talking about the power of happiness. And of course, I won't be able to find it quickly in here, but oh, good, it says it here. For the instant that one grasps the moment to get something from it, it seems to disappear. The reason is perhaps that enjoyment is a function of nerves rather than muscles, and that nerves receive automatically and passively, whereas muscles grasp actively. Enjoyment is always gratuitous and can come no other way than of itself, spontaneously. To try to force it is, furthermore, to try to experience the future before it has arrived, to seek the psychological result of attending to the present experience and thus short-circuiting or cutting out the experience itself. So in other words, if I'm saying, I'm doing this so that I can be happy, in the way that I'm saying that, it means that I'm not happy now. I'm placing my happiness in the future somehow by what I'm doing, and then I can't get to it in the present. And I'm sort of dividing myself because I'm like, well, I'm not there, but I'm doing this to be there. And I'm limiting my ability to just actually have it by welcoming the present and allowing it in. So I think more is going to be revealed over the next few weeks in actually attaining this, and not in such a mental grasping way, for lack of a better phrasing. So anyway, if you're here listening to this, thank you so much. I hope you could get something out of this. I certainly did in sharing it. I love sharing this journey, and I want to be on it with you. And I think together we can achieve so much more. And yeah, we're going somewhere, and it's going to be beautiful, but that puts it in the future. So excuse me, we are somewhere amazing, and this is a beautiful moment, and it's just going to continue to expand here and now. So thank you.